Nobody say anything.
I had no edits. But I did for a moment, forgot how short the meeting was and I had my notes and it was on one page.
Getting a sticker for today.
Okay, you muted.
Ready? Are you all ready? All right, everyone, welcome to the the May 23rd, 2024 BAR small meeting. My name is Lindsay Van Slambrook. I'll be your chairwoman this evening. Fellow board members present with me tonight are Julia Martin, Bill Huey, and Fillmore Wilson. City staff present are Frankie Pinto, BARS Administrator, Travis Galley, Senior Preservation Planner, and Rachel Four, the city's new Preservation Planner. Welcome. The order of tonight's meeting will be as follows. For each application, we'll hear an introduction and overview from city staff for the benefit of the board and the public. Then this will be followed by the applicant's presentation. You'll have a 10-minute period of time to present your project, and anyone speaking with the on behalf of the owner, so designers, consultants, should speak during this period versus during public comment. By ordinance, the board can ask questions of the applicant at any time. By custom, we do so on the heels of the applicant's presentation. This will be followed by public comment. Any written public comment has been provided to this board in advance of the meeting. If you are speaking as a member of the public, please approach the podium and state your name first and last for the record. And if you're a neighbor, please state your address as well. Public comment will be followed by city staff comments and recommendations. Once we've heard from city staff and the public, the applicant will have a 5-minute period of time to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or the city staff comments and recommendations. And once we've heard from the applicant, board discussion will begin and we'll take a vote on each matter. Results will be posted online. No items have been withdrawn or deferred this evening. And please note that comments need to be limited to architecture only. The purview of this board is design, so comments related to livability, zoning, lot lines should not be voiced here because they're not from the purview of this board. All right, we'll get started. Agenda item A1, review of minutes from the May 9th, 2024 meeting. I make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. The motion passes unanimously. Agenda item B1, 95 Gordon Street. Frankie, to give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. 95 Gordon Street is a category 4 circa 1947 in the historic materials demolition purview. They are requesting demolition of a shed or rear accessory structure. This is the property's location on Gordon Street. Did she grab the wrong phone?
This is it.
Okay, sorry. I got confused for a second. My intern did it last week and it's been a long week. Some context of Gordon Street. And Sanborn map showing the history of the property. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Yep, thanks, Ricky. So, yeah, pretty straightforward, asking to demo the shed. It's about 200 square feet. It's built in 1947. It's a wood structure. You guys are the experts, but to me, I don't think it carries any architectural or historical significance. It's got a lot of termite damage. There's a crack to the foundation. And it's barely visible from the street. So I think, Frankie, if this is my application, if you actually look, so that sliver through there is all you can see from the street currently.
And I can flip through to anything you want.
Okay, so if you don't mind, probably give you some context, just another couple of pages. Here's the shed. Want to slowly click through, you can get a general gist of it. But I've talked to my neighbors on all sides. They're all in support, don't have a problem with it. It does back up to my neighbor behind me's house and their fence line, and they can see it, as well as you can share a property line with my neighbors to the east. They're all fine with the demo. So anyway, I'm following the appropriate procedure since it's more than 50 years old and you can see it from the street. So I think that's all I got.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, do we have anyone speaking for the public?
April Wood, Charleston Foundation. HCF has reviewed the application for the demolition of the historic shed at 95 Gordon Street, and we appreciate the site visit this morning. It appears that the shed was constructed at the same time as the house and is a good example of a historic accessory structure. It retains its historic form and materials, including its exposed rafter tail siding and trim. It also appears that the structure is in relatively good condition and can be repaired. We respectfully recommend denial of the demolition of the shed.
Anna Catherine Alexander with Preservation Society of Charleston. We also appreciated the chance to visit the site this morning and have very similar comments to Historic Charleston Foundation, and that Sanborn maps do indicate that this outbuilding is likely original to the property and reflect planning characteristics common among properties in Wagner Terrace from the same period of development as can be seen along the street. Same comments about significant level of historic material and detail, and we ask that the board deny this request. Thank you.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay, Frankie, if you give the city staff comments and recommendations, please.
The existing structure appears to have been constructed approximately the same time as the house and still retains character defining features such as rafter tails. But due to the existing fence, the structure is minimally visible from the street. Staff recommendation is approval of demolition.
Thank you, Frankie. Mr. Stiles, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or the city staff comments?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think I'm surprised to hear your concerns. You know, it would have been great if you could have voiced those this morning, and then we could have talked about that instead of surprising us all here at the meeting. But you know, in general, I don't understand how you can have that opinion that it's these materials are significant by any means. They're just wood. They're in my backyard. Nobody else can see them. You know, I think this structure's old, although it looks like it's usable. Again, there's termite damage all over it, and the foundation's cracked. And you know, like I said, I don't think all of my neighbors don't care. They're all in support of it being taken down. And I think that you know, just anybody, if they lived on Gordon Street or in Wagner Terrace and, you know, this is your property in the back, you should have the freedom to do whatever you want on it, especially a shed. So those are my opinions, but thank you for your concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Stiles. All right, public comment in the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
I think that there are character defining features on it. It's almost completely original, I think, and it has some interesting detail. I think it is it's probably the same age or very close to the same age as the house. And I think it has one significant flaw. That is the way the elevation in that backyard is. The water runs towards that little garage, and that's why the bottom of it is rotted out. And so I think to make it a useful ancillary building, it would have to be elevated, not much, but probably 8 or 10 inches, which would mean picking it up and pouring a raised foundation and setting it back down on it. And it is very minimally visible. So I find that situation a little burdensome.
For the benefit of the applicant, preservation groups typically don't engage with applicants, you know, unless the applicant reaches out to them, just to let you know, it wasn't.
Sure,
kind of
yeah,
put on the ambush.
I know it wasn't personal.
Yeah, and
Efficiency of everybody's time.
and we all, I mean, our purview is to protect historic architecture in your neighborhood, regardless of what neighbors, you know, say. And I know that we've struggled with situations like this in the past because, I mean, for better or worse, your little garage is kind of still in the original condition, original form, original materials. A lot of them are there. But I personally could kind of follow the lead of Fillmore and recognize the minimal visibility of it, and could probably be, you know, on board with letting it go.
Yeah, and it seemed to be the staff was sort of judging their recommendation on the fact that it was minimally visible. I'm sorry I wasn't there this morning, but I did go by. Yeah, it was minimally visible. We did that. And I guess frankly, would that have been main reason for your comfort with the recommendation is that it is minimally?
Yes, sir, because we couldn't see most of the structure due to the fence.
I would say we couldn't see a lot of the character defining features because of the fence, the rafter tails and that. I have nothing to add in agreement with someone. Fillmore, were you gonna
Motion.
make a motion?
Well, yes, motion for approval of demolition.
Second that.
We have a motion on the floor for approval of demolition. We have a second. I'll put the motion to a vote. Bill,
Yeah, in favor.
Fillmore,
Yeah, but
Julia,
In favor.
chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Smiles.
Thank you.
Not, you're not Smiles, but.
I'll take it all. Thank you.
Okay, agenda item B2, 15 Hamden Court. Francis, you'll give us an introduction and overview of the project, please.
Yes, ma'am. 15 Hampton is a new structure, east side, Council District 4 in the Old City District. They were requesting conceptual preliminary approval for a new single-family dwelling. This is the property's location on Hampton Court. Some existing site photos. Context of Hampton. And the pretty structure on the property from the architectural inventory. And we will turn it over to the applicant.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to present today. This project, Hampton Court, is a project my client Carlos and I are very excited about. This project was previously started by another local architect and then passed on to me for this phase of the project. So just to reiterate Frankie's recap, 15 Hampton Court is a proposed new construction, 2-story, single-family home. It is located on the east side of downtown, right behind the cigar factory, and the proposed home will sit on an existing vacant lot. And Hampton Court is comprised of all 2-story, single-family homes. And if you want to go to the site plan, please. So since the project was last presented, there have been some slight modifications to the site plan, which includes shifting the home 1.5 feet towards the streetscape so that the home sits in better alignment with the adjacent existing structures. And we have also changed the back deck to a patio with pavers, but still to be of the same size. And for this site plan, we are now showing the exterior lighting locations with the front porch entry now showing wall-mounted electric lanterns on the first and second story of the porch. And those same lanterns on the rear on either side of the patio sliders. And the side entrance will have the same electric lantern fixture, but it will be chain mounted from the ceiling. And go to the next slide, perfect. The proposed home will be contextual to its surroundings in terms of scale, proportion, and architectural features. As you can see with the existing neighborhood photos, you'll see in this last update, we started to implement more of the neighborhood architectural features in the design, including switching to a gable roof and adding gable returns, as well as an updated railing and column detail and brick front porch step detail. There's just some photos of the existing streetscape. And the landscape plan will be minimal with a poured oyster shell driveway and some simple plantings of fan palms and pampas grass. And for the first floor, we've added just much more detailing to the front porch steps, as well as added a 3-panel slider on the rear, and otherwise the first floor plan has not changed. For the second floor, again, the changes were really minimal on second floor, just including changing the layout of the master shower and toilet. the roof is where we probably saw the most biggest update, where we switched from the hip roof to the gable style roof to make the home more contextual to its surroundings. We will be utilizing charcoal architectural shingles, and on the rear, we added a prefabricated Juliet style metal awning above the 3-panel slider. And for the elevations, you can start to see these updates reflected in the elevations with the new gable roof and gable returns. And the brick front porch steps have been further detailed. And while we added more detail to the front steps, we did remove the brick detail from the perimeter of the foundation. And we are now showing the updated exterior lighting, as I had mentioned, at the front doors. And the front doors also switched from a full light to a 3/4 light, but the doors will remain the fir wood clear stained. And we also made the switch to Sierra Pacific double hung 3x6 windows on these elevations. And on the rear elevation, you can see the change to the sloped metal roof awning and the 3-panel slider. Building section. And then we've added our details and wall sections. If you want to go to the next page. Yeah, here you can start to see those front porch step details with the brick and the updated railing details. We're doing the top rail is the pointed top rail with the beaded side detail, and the wood pickets are painted. And then here you're seeing our door and window details, pretty straightforward. We are showing the hardy lap siding with the copper flashing on the windows, as well as we updated the sill detail to show a smaller wood sill with a 1x4 hardy trim board at the bottom. And like I mentioned, the door switched to the 3/4 light, the window switched to the Sierra Pacific 3x6, and we added the 3-panel slider. And this detail just shows the updated column detail, as well as the peaked top rail and beaded side rail, and the hardy trim plank details. And that's it.
Any questions for the applicant?
No.
That window's aluminum clad, and is it a simulated firelight? Is that what it is? STO?
Yes, correct.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone speaking? All right. Frank, if you'll give us any staff comments and recommendations, please.
Staff appreciate that the roof has been simplified to all gable forms. The house has been brought closer to the street, and direct access to street has been added, reflecting the context of the street. The proposal does vary from the context of the street in that other structures follow the traditional pattern of telescoping down toward the rear of the lot. But staff recommendation is conceptual approval with a final review by staff.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the staff recommendation?
No, that makes sense to me.
All right, we'll move into board discussion.
Greg, I have a question for you, I guess, to start. This seems to indicate hardy plank. Are we not kind of requiring thicker siding for new construction downtown? That's not officially affordable housing? Do you know?
I believe we have approved some in the past, have we not?
No.
Artisan's back online.
Is it?
Yeah, they're selling it.
And
So it would be Artisan.
yeah, or the true exterior, they're just a thicker 5/8.
Oh, I missed that it was not the 5/8. I apologize.
Thicker.
I thought it was.
Beyond that, I appreciate the kind of conceptual moves and adjustments that were made since the last review and the deferral. And moving forward, since you're showing details, I just have a list of some that I think you might be wise to kind of refine and clarify. I think if you go to either the roof plan or the east elevation to start with, I think this is maybe just some kind of graphic error, but that vertical line on the east elevation, which is also showing up in the roof plans, I don't think that exists. I think this is all one roof plane on that side. On the other side, it breaks, but not on this side. And then things like the column base and capital are unclear, or would be unclear to a contractor what you intend to have there. The window sill is still a little odd to me. It's a two-piece thing. Did you look at that? The soffit and eave detail is, I don't know, it's very basic. It might be what you want, but might be worth another look. The brick detail, the perimeter and your floor at the porches is also a little odd, and that brick doesn't extend, doesn't project a little bit at the edge. It's right flush with the structure below it. Seems a little strange to me. And the wood handrail that you have indicated goes all the way down to the ground with wood, and just the detail needs a little refinement and adjustment, and you'll have to have some sort of graspable handrail there. And then finally, sorry for the long list, but finally the beam detail above the columns, it's not represented anywhere. So if you want to add that in, just so they're not guessing, because I know from experience, that's not a good plan.
Thought you were gonna say the beams also to align with the shaft.
Yeah, they should, but it's not shown here. Is it on
Well,
the
on the
elevations? It's
elevation,
not?
it's shown
Okay,
proud, so it's not
Yeah,
for the capital.
yeah.
That one.
I just was not seeing a beam detail.
Yeah.
That's where you could really,
Can't see them.
gotcha. So yeah, I think, I think the details could use a good bit of attention and refining, but in terms of conceptual, I'm okay with it. And appreciate the changes.
The other thing I just want to make sure that the party was artisan and not 5/16.
Yeah,
I think
or
that-
true exterior, just
Yeah,
better.
or something, yeah.
Mhm.
Technically not in the mix, but there is precious little green space on it. And it would be nice if that drive or something pervious instead of poured concrete. It's just a suggestion. But I think it's fine. I think it fits nicely.
With
I don't think like let's get back, just get all that. Stop with that.
So it sounds like the two main comments. Seems like your list was more refining and correcting other than the siding,
Mhm.
and I think that was it.
this. someone-
Pervious material,
I mean,
Naturally.
comment to.
That's a suggestion. I don't think we can.
Yeah.
I don't think we can. It's just a suggestion to try to. Get a little more pervious space.
All right, so I'll make a motion for conceptual approval with board comments to use a siding material that is 5/8 inch thick, and to refine the details as discussed.
We have a motion on the floor for conceptual approval with board comments to use siding material that is 5/8 inch thick and to refine the details as discussed. Do I have a second to Julia's motion?
Second.
So I'll put the motion to a vote. Fillmore,
Yay, in favor.
Julia,
In favor.
Bill,
Yeah.
chair vote to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Fillmore, you are out.
Used.
Agenda item B3, 48 South Battery. Frank, you could give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
Ma'am, 48 South Battery is in Charlestown, Council District 8. It is a category 2, circa 1846 in the Golden Historic District. They're requesting conceptual, preliminary, final approval for flood barriers. This is the location on South Battery. Existing site photos. Context of South Battery. View from Lample Street. And Sanborn, Mass. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angie Schnar with Metters. I'm here to present our proposal for 48 South Battery, the flood barriers. HCF holds an easement on this property, so I just wanted to thank you for taking time to review this with us. So our main objective with this project is to employ a passive solution that helps mitigate floodwaters that enter the property during our frequent and very heavy rains, as you all know. These oftentimes coincide with high tides. These flood barriers would be located behind the existing garden wall, so they would be minimally visible to the public. Our client currently has manual flood barriers that must be installed ahead of time. They're quite cumbersome, heavy, and that requires the owner to be home to actually put them into place to protect the property. And when they're not installed correctly, they get blown out by trucks, creating wakes when they pass by, so. That's our overview. Next slide, please. Next. There we go. Here are some context photos, and you can see the existing stucco wall, the white wall that goes across. So all of these gates would be behind that. The bottom left corner, you can see where the manual flood barrier is that they put into place. And on the right, bottom right, you can see the pedestrian gate that they put into place as well. Next slide.
Sorry.
Yeah, these are just some Sanborn context photos. Yeah. This one. Here we go. So here's the existing site plan. You can see the 3 gates that we're talking about on the bottom of the page. The one to the west, we're basically just going to keep in place. All of them we're keeping in place, but we're not going to be putting a flood solution at that one, other than just a manual gate to keep in place. And then the middle one, I'll walk you through the rest of them with the next slide, but those are the 3 gates. So I mentioned the western one is rarely used, that gate, so we're gonna keep a manual flood barrier in place and the owner can remove it as needed. We did some GPR testing on site, so there are utilities running under that gate as well as the drive gate, so we have to be sensitive about the solution for the barriers in that case. The middle pedestrian gate would have a passive float up barrier, so it's gonna come up vertically. That's located behind the garden wall. This barrier would be recessed in the ground in a concrete basin and begin to rise as the water rises. It's guided by tracks that would be mounted to concrete cheek walls that are going to be covered in stucco and match the existing height and look of the garden wall that's there now. The existing garden gate at the middle by the front door, that stays closed almost all the time, so really won't see those cheek walls. The flood barrier to the east is located at the driveway. Because we have utilities running under there, it's going to be like a tilt up version. It allows for a shallower foundation, basically. It sits in a concrete pan and tilts up as the water starts to come in. It also requires concrete cheek walls that we will use the same treatment to match the existing garden wall and height the best we can. The driveway serves both 48 South Battery and 48 and a half, so that stays open most of the time. So you would be seeing the stainless steel cover basically of what the floodgate would be just above the brick apron. There's like a brick apron at the bottom of the page there, so that would be visible to the public. I think next are elevations. Yeah, you can see the upper right, the 3 existing wooden gates. Go next. And then just the proposed, you really don't see much with the gates closed. And then next. These are the enlarged floor plans. On the bottom left, you can see the pedestrian gate that's about 3'2" wide and about 42.5 inches tall. It's gonna have a stainless steel plate that's flush with the pavers on the ground. And the concrete cheek walls are on either side with tracks that help raise and lower the wall. And the vehicular barrier is on the right, and that's just kind of a zoomed in detail showing you the concrete apron that goes around it, and then the stainless steel plate that's also going to be flush with paving. Cheek walls, and then the next. These are just some of the manufacturer details. We have not secured the funds for shop drawings yet, so we're working with what they've given us so far, based on how things go tonight, but, so we have got some of the basics down. The next couple slides are just the manufacturer details.
Do you want me to just flip through?
Yeah, I can look those. So this is, this and then the next page are both 3D views of what you would see. This is in the event that the floodgate would be deployed. Not that, if people are experiencing that, they're probably not out in the middle of the street, because South Battery is probably flooded, but, so if you wanna go to the next page. Thank you. You can see there, it's a flush plate that sits flush with the ground. You can kind of peek and see the cheek walls on either side. One thing to note that the cheek walls on the right for the vehicular gate attached to the garden wall of 46 South Battery, and we have that neighbor's approval, but it's a minimal attachment, and anything that we do with it will be reversible, so it's okay with it. Overall, we feel that this is a high quality solution, and it's minimally visible. All of it can be reversible, like I mentioned, so happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions?
No.
Yeah, I appreciate your stated right there at the end about engaging that neighboring wall. That was one question I was gonna have, but, what would be, you called it a suite or whatever, a track? What would be the mounting into that wall? I assume that's an old wall, so.
There's gonna be like a padding basically between, it's gonna be a concrete cheek wall in between the wiper wall, so there's a buffer, and we're gonna still work out the details with the manufacturer, but I could get back to you on the actual specifics of how we're attaching that. I can't answer right now.
So no doubt, you're probably that garden wall, you're gonna have to do some kind of fastening or bolting into that wall. Okay.
Just in terms of aesthetics, when that gate is open, which you say it usually will be, that band that is the tilt up barrier is stainless steel. That's what you'll see, like that as paving, as it were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone speaking from the public?
April Wood, Historic Charleston Foundation. HCF has a preservation easement on 48 South Battery. Unfortunately, this property is in a flood-prone area of the city. The owners have found that the existing floodgates are insufficient and difficult to use. And they told me at one of the last floods, the flood panels for the driveway blew out all the way down the driveway. We're hopeful that this style of flood barriers will offer better protection. We have reviewed this application and confirmed that this application conforms to the requirements of the easement. We're supportive of the application and respectfully recommend approval. Thank you.
Is there anyone else speaking? Okay, Frankie, if you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations.
We just had the BAR policy regarding walls being scaled to their context and prevent a fortress-like appearance. We've had several of these items come up where we feel like the gate is kind of in contrast to the policy, but we're supportive of what they're proposing because of climate change, because of the flooding issues that we are having. Also because this is a category 2, this change couldn't be approved at a staff level. So staff recommendation is approval. We just wanted to provide the wall policy is
Yeah.
why we were having issues here.
Did you want to respond to or clarify anything? So, all right, board discussion and a vote.
I think it's a thoughtful proposal to a real problem and have no issue with it.
And HCF has approved it. That's even more so.
I'll make a motion for approval, final approval.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for approval. Bill, I heard you second. I'll put the motion to a vote. Did you second?
Wow, glad you heard that.
Julia,
Yay in favor.
Bill.
Yeah.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, agenda item B4 is 58 Trout Street. Fran, please give us an introduction overview of the project, please.
58 Church Street is also in Charlestown, Council District 8. It is also a category 2, circa 1768 in the Old Historic District. Also requesting final approval for a skylight / monitor on the rear portion of house. This is the property's location on Trent Street. Existing state photos. Context of trad. And then more. And I will turn it over to the applicant.
Hello, Richard Marks, representing Dr. and Mrs. White's. White is here with us tonight, and his wife couldn't make it, but I've worked on this house since the early 90s, and so this is the third client I've had this house to take care of. And the house originally had a 2-story kitchen house in the back. I don't know when it came down. The addition that's in the back is a 1-story. It has a shed roof with a parapet wall around it with 2 scuppers that dump out into the west side of the property. And the whole time I've worked on it, these scuppers have been a problem. The Cohens, Dick and Breen Cohen, who live on the corner of Ropemaker and Meeting Street, have beautiful trees, big trees, and they're always dumping leaves on this roof. So my suggestion to every client I've ever worked for is let's get rid of this parapet roof and let's just at least put a shed, so it can, if it overflows, it just goes out and it doesn't dump into the house, because we have had it. It's about a parapet like that deep, and it's filled up with water and a couple of hurricanes and storms. And with all the leaves, it just gets overwhelmed. So the Whites just purchased the house, and they took my advice. And they said, let's get rid of that parapet on the east side or west side. And while we're doing it, could we put a monitor, because it's pretty dark in that room. And so it's not a historic. I think this thing was probably framed in the late 70s, early 80s. It's a 1-story shed roof. Basically now we're going to keep it a shed roof, put a monitor on, and it has easements. And I talked to April, and Historic Charleston looked at it. We made a monitor mock-up. So we actually made a mock-up of it. We put it on the roof. We had neighbors come look at it. Everybody liked it. So I think we have an image of the monitor on the roof.
I'm flipping to it right now.
There it is. So in this image, you can actually see the parapet wall to the left side of the right-hand picture, which that's what dams up the water. So we would basically get rid of that. And so it's minimally, but you can't see it from Trash Street at all. You can see it a little bit from Roadmakers, from the Cohen's backyard. And they were the only ones that I thought would really care, but they were fine. All the neighbors were fine with it. They liked it. So at any rate, that's what we would like to do.
Any questions? Thank you. Do we have anyone speaking from the public?
April Wood is the Charleston Foundation. HCF has a preservation easement on 58 Trad Street. The rear dependency was heavily modified before the easement was donated on the property. The proposed light monitor on the roof is minimally visible and does not impact any historic materials. We've reviewed the application and confirmed that this application conforms to the requirements of the easement, and we are supportive of the application and respectfully recommend approval. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, Frankie, so give us the staff comments and recommendations.
The proposed monitor is minimally visible from Rope Maker Lane and not visible from Trad Street. If approved, the monitor would not be seen in context with the main historic hub. Since this is a category 2 building, the change can't be approved at staff level. Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you, Frankie. Mr. Marks, did you want to respond to or clarify anything? Thank you. For discussion and a vote.
I did want to say one thing, and I'm sorry, I didn't mention this. It's now a membrane roof because it is a parapet. We're gonna put a copper roof, standing seam copper on it. And I don't know if that matters to anybody, but since it's gonna be a shed, we don't have to have a membrane roof now.
Thank you.
I just had a couple of comments. I mean, I think the proposal is wonderful. I have no issue with it. One, I wish that staff would consider maybe changing your policy statement so that some things like this that are so easy, you could handle and wouldn't have to go put sign up and all that. And two, just to be equitable, Mr. Marks, graphically, like it would just be helpful if for whoever's reviewing this to have, you know, some labels on the drawings with what elevation they're looking at. And it looks like maybe your roof plan got printed the wrong way and kind of warped in terms of proportion. But back to the positive, I think it's great. I think staff, I would like for them to be able to approve this without having to worry about it.
Yeah, out of curiosity, Richard, what's the pitch gonna be on the standing beam
It's
roof?
about 412.
Minimally visible as well is another factor, yeah.
Sounds like we have a consensus.
So, yeah. I'm making a motion for, final approval.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we need a final or a final approval?
With final review by staff, I guess. Permit.
We'll just have to go into the permit.
Yeah.
But we can do that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for final approval. So do we need a final review by staff in this situation?
No, we can just go in and.
Okay.
If you give a final
Got it.
approval, we'll just go in the permit auto approve it.
Got it. So final approval. Do I have a second to Julia's motion?
So,
Thank you, Bill. With the motion to a vote, Fillmore,
yeah, in favor.
Julia.
Stay in favor, but we do not approve the duct tape.
Do we need a board condition? Bill. Chair vote to the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Julia.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I'll be back. Do you have your form?
No, I forgot to give one of them.
Thank y'all.
Okay, agenda item B5, 18 Elizabeth Street. Frankie, if you'll give us an introduction to the project, please.
18 Elizabeth Street is in Mid Rexboro, Council District 4. It is a category 4, circa 1905 in the Old Historic District. In conceptual approval of shed dormers, new rear porch, modifications to addition, new accessory structure, and alterations to front steps and hardscape. This is the property's location on Elizabeth Street. Existing site photos. Context of Elizabeth. And board map showing the history of the property. And architecture inventory. And I'll turn it over to you. Yeah.
Do you know what Nancy?
Yes.
In the-
Yes. I just forgot to email you.
No, that's fine, that's fine. I brought some in case it happened. Good evening, Erin Lanier with Juliana Martin, Architects here tonight on behalf of our clients for the new owners of 18 Elizabeth Street. I'm not sure where the 1905 date came from. As far as we can tell, this house was constructed in the mid-1920s. And has for most of its existence been owned by a nearby church that used it as a rental property.
Tax records, stuff,
Yeah.
and we didn't double check afterwards.
If you want to go to the next slide.
Sure.
These are just some context photos of the area on Elizabeth Street between Charlotte and Henrietta. Next slide. These are some existing site photos of the property, which you can see has quite a bit of deferred maintenance. The building consists of the original two-story mass at the front and then a post-1955 addition at the rear, which you can see the back up there in the bottom left. While for the most part, the exterior will just need repairs in kind, the steps, which you can see there, as well as the site wall up front will likely need to be sensitively reconstructed. Next slide. We did a good deal of looking for old photographs of this house with no luck, but we did appreciate the similarities between our house and this vintage photograph of a sister house of the same era. The plat on the left is where we get our date from. That was done in 1922 and shows that was part of 43 Charlotte at the time, and they were contemplating subdividing it into 5 lots. So that lot 4 is what ultimately became our property. The house itself first appears in the 1929 Sanborn map, and then again, the existing rear addition was constructed sometime after 1955. Next slide. So here is an existing and proposed site layout. We are maintaining the existing footprint with the addition of a new 1-story rear porch, which will include a narrow bay that will not be visible from the right of way. We're also requesting a new accessory structure to serve as a garden shed, and we'll be working with the gardener on various site improvements to include addressing the existing site wall and steps at the front, which are in poor shape. You want to go to the next page?
Sorry.
Oh, okay, the landscape, that's okay.
It's in here, it just might be in a different place.
That's fine, no worries. All right. So first floor plan existing proposed, we'll be restoring the front porch, which has started to exhibit significant cracking and settlement. There's a non-original tile finish that will be removed, and then the concrete floor will be repaired. We also need to reconstruct the concrete front steps and would like to add period appropriate cheek walls to either side. At the existing rear addition, the hodgepodge of siding profiles and non-historic windows will be replaced with consistent siding and new fenestration. This area will be the kitchen and will lead out to a new 1-story porch overlooking the garden. Next slide. The second floor, there are no exterior changes except at the rear elevation where we have that 2-story bay extension and then new windows at the primary bath. But again, that area is not visible. So it was important to us and our clients to retain as much of the original layout and features of the home as possible. And we creatively utilize the existing footprint rather than demolish the current addition or expand further into the rear yard. We've opted instead to incorporate the existing attic into living space, as you can see here. In doing so, we are requesting 2 new dormers, one at the south and one at the rear. So ideally, we would have utilized the historic dormer at the front. The windows are very small and low to the floor, such that they cannot even facilitate egress. As you'll see in our elevations, the new dormers differentiate themselves, but really will be minimally visible. Next slide. This is our existing and proposed roof plan, proposing flat block copper for the new low slope roofs at the dormer and the rear, and then the existing asphalt shingle roof will be replaced in kind. Next slide. Before we get into our elevations, there's just some renderings to help visualize the proposed improvements to the front, as well as the visibility of the dormer on the south and the new porch of the rear. Next slide. So moving to the west and south elevations, we're cleaning up various mismatched windows, suggesting new shutters at the front and adding cheek walls at both sides of the porch steps. We also need to repair and reconstruct the existing coping wall at the sidewalk and would like to shift the south portion, which is currently CMU, over slightly to make it a little bit easier to open a car door. We're also proposing that both the coping wall and cheek walls receive a painted stucco finish to match the building trim, given the inability to exactly match the original brick. At the south, you can see the new dormer tucked behind the chimney, but centered about the roof.
And then at the rear, the addition is repaired with new consistent siding and the roof line is raised to match the eave of the main roof to get a little bit more head height than what is currently only a 7-foot ceiling. We're proposing masonry foundation at the new rear porch with pine railings to relate to the new fenestration of the kitchen. And then there's the narrow two-story bay rather beyond that you can see there. Next slide. The rear elevation is really not visible outside of this sliver of porch. You'll catch down the driveway. So we've gone a slightly more contemporary direction, incorporating steel fenestration and more streamlined detailing to differentiate from the historic character of the front. One thing I'll mention is that the owner would like to add a few more inches to the width of the new porch. But that slight expansion will require a special exception. However, if that is ultimately approved, the impact on what you see from the street would be negligible and is in fact what is reflected in the rendering on the previous sheet. Next slide. And this is a proposed garden shed, which is slightly whimsical and takes its cues from vintage milk houses, which you can see there at the left. That is all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, the new roof on the porch and the dormers. That's labeled as flat lock.
Yeah.
It's gonna be flat seam. What's the pitch?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know that off the top of my head, but we'll make sure it is right.
No, I mean, I'm thinking it almost looks like it's got enough pitch to do standing seam. Could be wrong. It's hard to tell.
Very low.
Because, oh, I appreciate flat seam copper, believe me.
Any other questions? All right. Do we have anyone speaking from the public?
Anna Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston. We appreciated the chance to discuss this project with the applicant, and we are comfortable with the proposal overall, but would ask that alterations to the original roof form be limited to the rear. We're not supportive of the introduction of a shed dormer on the south elevation, which would be highly visible from the public right of way and adversely impact the historic roof form. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Frankie, if you'll give us city staff comments and recommendations, please.
Found it. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. That's Lynn's plan for what we would progress to, which is nothing different from what we were showing in ours. Right here.
Staff operations staff appreciate that the proposed dormers do not interact with the bridge. While this is primarily noticed in elevation, the proposal creates an odd condition of having dormers be asymmetrical from right to left. And the alterations to the front porch are very minimal. Staff conditions for approval. A new window on existing addition are very horizontal per BAR guidelines. They should be more vertical in proportion. While staff appreciates the desire to match the rear door, that correlation is only experienced on the inside. Staff recommendation for the house, we recommend conceptual approval with staff condition and final review by staff. That should be of permit documents. Apparently I can't type. An accessory structure, we are recommending conceptual approval with final review by staff of permit documents. And we are requesting Darth Vader on the next drawing sets. And we found out you have all kinds of good drawings. We do like the cow.
Aaron, did you want to respond to or clarify anything raised in the public comment or the city staff comments?
Yeah, sure. The new window at the existing addition, I assume being on the south side, was intended to be a transom in the kitchen, but it can totally be vertical. We can do that. In terms of the dormer, I do think that the notion of it being asymmetrical is really something you would only perceive in elevation. This house sits up on a hill, sits back from the street, and has a very wide, low sloped roof. And aside from that, you know, we just feel like this particular style of house, this house in particular, is not especially symmetrical. The steps are off center, the doors off center, the chimney, the side bay. You know, much like our single houses here, it's not an especially symmetrical building. I have some precedent images I'd be happy to share that sort of speak to what we were thinking. In terms of the dormer, it's functionally not going to work to use that if we can't have a dormer that gives us what is giving us
a minimum of 6 feet, just to squeeze the tiniest little bathroom up there. And then we have to have a window for egress. So that is, our notion was putting it on the south side, putting it behind, that chimney is minimal as you can see it. And I think if you flip back to, the renderings, you get a much better sense than you do from the elevations of what the reality is of that.
Thank you. All right, public comment in the applicant's presentation is now closed. We'll move into board discussion and a vote.
A lot of positives for the little house that's going on. Yeah, I guess, I'm good with staff's comments and the comments they've made for the as conditions for approval. Yeah, I guess the only thing I was having a little reservation about was that additional dormer. I do see the point of making that top level usable. And yes, you could say the potential trade-off of a more extensive addition on the house to create more space. This is a lot less impactful. So. Yeah, I mean, I think I can get my head around the installation of that dormer as well. Provided it's fairly minimal visually.
Yeah, I think overall it's great. Like I said, I'll say it again, I really appreciate that. That's gonna be a blessing. I think that's wonderful. I'm just surprised. So thank you. I think the dormer, I think the issue is the flat roof, the fact that I understand that may be the only configuration you can get the space with. It would, I think it's not the dormer, I think it's the roof form on the dormer. That might be visually the problem. But in your perspectives, it does look like it really is pretty minimally visible. So that is not I think if there were some way to look at that and see if that roof form might be changed a little bit to make it a little more compatible with the rest of the roof forms on the house, that would be nice, but it is not a deal breaker for me. I understand why it's done the way it is.
Yeah, and I agree with Bill's comment that it's a more sensitive addition to this house to get space versus
I think so.
making a much larger modification
I agree.
to the back of the house.
All right. So we'll go ahead and make a motion for conceptual approval with staff's conditions,
That's for the house alteration.
with house alterations, conceptual approval
Oh, did we talk about the accessory structure at all?
did go on.
I had no problem.
No cows, that's why the cow's here, I assume. And it's whimsical, it's a little bit higher style elements than the house has, but it's a little whimsical building, and it's cute, it's detailed well, I don't really have issues with that, so, motion for regarding the house alteration, conceptual approval with staff conditions and final review by staff of permit documents for the accessory conceptual approval with final review by staff of permit documents.
All right, we have a motion on the floor, which it matches the staff recommendation. Do we have a second to Bill's
Second.
motion? Thank you. The motion to a vote, Bill?
Yeah,
Fillmore?
Yeah, in favor.
Chair votes the majority and the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Oh, that's nice. Really cute little place back there.
Include my comment about Darth Vader, but that's okay.
So I never. But since I don't track it, the last time I looked at it, very recently online, I couldn't find anything but 516. So
Yeah. So, agenda item 6.
Okay, there.
Are y'all presenting that or are we just talking about?
What's the matter?
B7 or E?
Yeah, 'cause-
Okay.
on the
Sure.
website.
I was gonna read it from here.
For the
Okay.
product that only lists 560, it must be brand new.
Yeah.
Okay, Frankie is going to present
That's
the
good.
final agenda item for modification of rules and procedures of the Board of Architectural Review related to meeting schedules.
I'm just gonna present it from over here. Okay. So essentially, we are proposing some changes to be made to Appendix D, which is where our our requirements for number of board meetings a month and some other things having to do with when the board meetings are timed and how they're timed. Really, this is to give us flexibility. And also to give us flexibility without having to change this again. We're trying to make the language a little bit broader. And we don't want to have to tweak the appendix again if we make changes. This is not something that we're going to do without letting anybody know. But this is a change that we've kind of talked about in the past to primarily with large, we're going to give them the ability to only do one meeting a month. Though, you know, once we collect some data, it might be that typically they have one meeting a month, but have the opportunity to do two meetings when we notice a higher influx of applicants. For us, all it would do is move our deadline back. We've run all the numbers. Tori, before she left, ran all kinds of data to find out if this was going to negatively impact applicants. And from what we can tell, no. Well, on paper, it looks like you have 2 days in order to get in a resubmittal if you're denied or deferred. You really can't get anything very good accomplished and turned in. So if someone was denied tonight and wanted to resubmit, the problem is we're not getting good submittals on the ones that do that. So it's actually going to, on paper again, give them more time. So right now, they would have to wait 12 days before they could submit again for the next board meeting. This is going to shift it, so it will actually, the deadline will be 7 days after this meeting. So on paper, it looks like we have 3 weeks. It's just sort of reorganizing when our deadline is to give different staff time to check all these things.
Do you all think that our meetings, and I don't know if this has affected the last 2 meetings, maybe it's just a fluke, but do you think that y'all's ability to have more time to make sure agenda items are meeting submittal requirements actually results in our agendas being smaller?
And that's what we're hoping. One is that we have more time to vet these things.
Right.
And even like, we've had several cases where we're trying to confirm things with zoning because what we're being provided tells us that it's compliant with zoning, but they haven't actually checked with zoning. We're also having things where zoning needs to look into something and they're not having the time to do it before we have to get our agenda published. So the number of meetings that Small has a year will not change. What will change is moving our deadline back so that different staff members have time to run all these things down before. Sorry, let me keep on the right thing. I don't know how I got back so far.
What a cute little shed.
What a cute little shed. So it's gonna give us a little bit more time to get these things done. It's also going to give us more time to get the public notice. So in this section, it talks about how our agenda has to get posted 5 days before. We are changing it to where we have to post it 8 days before the meeting. So we will have a deadline week, which if following this, we would have had a deadline this week for our next board meeting. That gives us some time to vet all of these things, make sure everything is complete, get some things posted ahead early, and maybe even get comments out to the public and have conversations. So if you need to defer, you can defer and work on this and get in by the next board meeting.
This all sounds extremely positive.
We think it's going to be, like I said, Tori ran all sorts of scenarios. The data that she came up with showed that this is going to be beneficial to everybody. Most of this is gonna make the numbers better as far as the timing between BAR and BZA. And talking about the BAR large meeting, they did some checking. They checked a bunch of similar sized cities. They compared Savannah, New Orleans, which is slightly different, Annapolis, Newport, St. Augustine. All of those are only having these meetings once a month. So that's why we're pushing to go down to once a month with large. They're not hitting a cap like we are. So that'll give staff more time to devote to large projects in between meetings. And then for small, it'll give us time to, instead of everybody having to do things concurrently, we'll have time to analyze things one at a time and make sure what you guys are getting is absolutely complete and ready to go. What the public is seeing is ready. So we're hoping that all of this is gonna be beneficial to everyone. This is only giving us flexibility. If this doesn't work, it gives us the flexibility to go back.
Thank you. I think it's all awesome. I'm ready to approve it. Final approval, final details and stuff. But I just have one comment, suggestion. Why not put the and/or on the small board too? Like, just think, are we breaking the law when we only have one meeting like in July, which we normally do? Like, you know what I'm saying? Why not just give yourself maximum
Like
flexibility?
we always have two.
While you're at it.
Why didn't it say we only have to have one, but we just.
Well, we didn't think there was an appetite for that because until the past, say, 2 months, we had been hitting the cap
Yeah,
every meeting.
but I mean, again, we just like break the law, I guess, in July and December. I don't know.
Well,
Well, actually, what it says is unless there is a conflicting holiday.
Oh,
Oh,
if
okay.
it's a holiday, we
So, yeah.
can skip the meeting.
I mean, whatever you guys, that all sounds great, but I mean, while you're at it, just say and/or for us too, if you wanted, doesn't, I mean, whatever.
Well,
you
I have to
got.
run it through both boards again because large approved it at the
Okay.
fight.
Actually, great. I know, yeah. Totally.
I
down.
especially like the idea that applicants could give feedback beforehand and pull applications.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
yeah, and that you have more time to review the submittals and make sure they're completed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Send them
they're
back.
good, and over time, again, as we've discussed before, if things do get kicked back to applicants, they'll understand the flaws of their ways, and then we'll fix that, and we'll get better submittals across the board. That's what is desirable. So
And it's
I like
awkward when we have to say your submission.
Sucks.
Exactly. So it sounds all positive. I mean, yeah, with that emotion.
Julia made a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you, Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yes.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Richard's client.
Nice